On this episode of Design to the Nines, we're going to be making 3 Joanna Gaines inspired DIYs using our Cricut machines. So let's get started. Today's episode is sponsored by Cricut, and I'm really excited to show you all the differences of their 3 machines, the CRICUT JOY, the Explore Air, and the CRICUT Maker. And I'm going to show you kind of like some of the benefits and features of all of them while doing some pretty amazing Joanna Gaines inspired DIYs. So let's start with our first project. So for our first Joanna Gaines inspired DIY, we are going to be using the Mac Daddy CRICUT Maker to complete this project. I fell in love with this little metal canister on Magnolia Home, and it's really cute. It's not terribly expensive. It ranges between $10 and $14. But one of the hurdles I had in creating this inspiration piece was that it had a engraved metal brass plate on the front of this canister. But with the CRICUT Maker, you have the ability to engrave metal. So I'm really excited to try that out. So in addition to engraving metal, you can cut fabric without it being bonded. You can cut wood. You can cut over 300 different materials. So it's really versatile. So let's get started on this DIY. So I'm going to start out with an empty Pirouette can. I already had it, so this is like a great trash to treasure upcycle. The first thing we're going to do is drill a hole in the middle of the lid large enough to thread our twine through. Then we're going to sand the underside of the lid to get rid of any rough edges. Now, I originally wanted to spray paint the entire tin can for a smooth finish, but I already had green chalkboard paint in the perfect shade of green, so I went in this direction. But this ended up being a mistake because when I went to apply the second coat, it pulled up that original first coat. So I ended up going back to my original plan by spray painting it in Shamrock Green by Rust-Oleum. So for the engraving plate, I went to Michael's and they had a package of aluminum plates, and they actually have little tiny holes on them, and I think they're going to be perfect. And so we're just going to go into Cricut Design Studio, and instead of doing Magnolia Home, established in 2015, I think is what it was, I'm going to do CALLAHAN Home, and established in 2007 when my husband and I were married. So it's a little bit more customized for me. I put a rectangle in the same size of our tag behind the font so that I can adjust the size and placement. I used Times New Roman font in all caps. You're going to want to make sure it's on the engrave setting, and also we're going to want to hide that rectangle because we don't want that to get engraved on. Then we're going to center our image on the mat and set it to anodized aluminum as our material. So this is so easy to open. You just lift it up and then it automatically opens, and you actually control this machine all through the computer. You can select what material you're using in there, whereas with the CRICUT Air 2 you'll notice that it has a dial to adjust. Now we're going to very carefully place our tag right in the center where we positioned the text, and then we're going to tape the edges, making sure you don't cover up any of the engraving area. Then we're going to push all the white feeders over to the right hand side to get them out of the way. Then we'll load our mat by pushing the arrow button. Now we need to put in the engraving blade. This tip uses the quick swap housing, which is really cool because you can use this housing with multiple tips, and it's very easy to switch out. Just press the button on the top, which will release the tip. Then you hold it down and put on the new tip to the housing, and then you let go the button. Then you're going to open up the A location and place the blade into place, and then lock it. Then you're going to push the C button to start engraving. After it is complete, I hit the C again and did a second pass so that the engraving was a little bit deeper. Then we'll peel off the tape and remove it from the mat. Now just flip it over and curl it back. We also need a handle like on the original piece, so I got these bendable rings, and we'll just take our needle nose pliers and grab the edge and make a 90-degree bend. Then grab right next to that bend and make another 90-degree bend in the opposite direction. Repeat this on the other side. Now we need some holes, so I take my crocodile snap punch and line it up and punch right through. Then we're going to remove the protective film. This is so easy. Now the original plan was to spray paint the plate brass like our inspiration piece, but when I did this, the engraving was much less prominent, so I decided to leave it as is. Since the can is round, we take the engraved plate and wrap it in a paper towel or a cloth and carefully bend it. Place the plate where you like it and mark where the holes are. We do the same thing for our handle. We punch holes in the tin with a hammer and nails or a drill, whatever works easiest for you. Then I just attach these with decorative brads in the brass color to bring in that color from the original inspiration piece. For a little added security, you can use some E6000 glue. Place your twine in the can and thread it through. Now this cost me around $1 in supplies, and with the help of the CRICUT Maker, we have a pretty amazing customized replica. Just think of the possibilities. All right, so I recently got my CRICUT Maker, but before my CRICUT Maker, I have been using pretty much nonstop my Explore Air 2, and I am just blown away with all that it can do. It can cut over 100 materials with it, everything from paper to vinyl to heat transfer vinyl. You can even do fabric, but you do have to bond it so that it can go through the machine. So our Joanna Gaines inspired DIY for this CRICUT Explore Air is she is really known for her bakery sign. It's in her bakery near the silos. She has it up there on the brick wall, but she's also used them in her Fixer Upper show, and that's the one that we're going to do today just because I felt like it would be a really easy project for anybody to do. I had this piece of scrap wood. It measures 12 by 36, and I had this on hand free to me because it was left over from something else. You could go into a home improvement store, and a lot of people will leave their cutoffs that they don't want for their projects, and you can find a thin little piece of wood like this. Prior to painting, we're going to take our 3/4 inch square dowel and measure them for a frame. I just do a blunt edge cut, and you can get away with making this cut by just using a Dollar Tree hacksaw for this simple cut. Then we're just going to paint the main piece in a white chalk paint, and the frame I decided to do in a black chalk paint for a higher contrast look. I attach my frame by using an electric staple gun with brad nails from the back side so you don't see any nail holes. Now we're ready to make our stencil. We are going to be making a stencil out of removable vinyl. I bought this huge roll of CRICUT vinyl. It's white because it doesn't really matter because we're just using it as a stencil. And when you buy it in bulk, it's a better deal that way. And they have lots of fonts to choose from. Lots of options, plus you can upload your own fonts. If you've downloaded any fonts on your system, they'll automatically populate within the CRICUT Design Studio, so it's really convenient that way. I've had a lot of people tell me that they are intimidated by these CRICUT machines, but really they are not that difficult to use. Once you go in and start playing with it, you'll feel a little bit more comfortable, and before you know it, you will be a pro at it. We're gonna go into CRICUT Design Studio and type out the word bakery. Now I used the font Arial Black. Then you can split all the letters, and then we can put one underneath one another. And then there's this really cool thing. If you highlight all of them, you can click align, so it aligns them top to bottom, and then you can also align it from left to right, so everything is nice and aligned. Due to the size of our stencil, we need to split up bakery in half to create 2 stencils. You do this by creating a rectangle and placing it behind the BAK, and then you duplicate it and place another one behind the ERY, making sure to align the 2 rectangles. Then you're going to want to make sure each rectangle is attached to the associated letters. Then you're going to want to highlight both stencils and adjust to the appropriate size. And then we hit Make It. Cut out your removable vinyl to the size you need and place it onto a standard mat, smoothing it out. Then, as before, we load our mat into the machine by hitting the arrow buttons, and then we hit the C button for cut or Cricut. Then once it's done cutting, we unload it from our machine and we take our hook and we weed out what we don't want. Then we take our transfer tape and smoothly apply it over the top, and then we can peel back our stencil and it's ready to go. Then we're going to lay our stencil down onto our finished board, making sure it's smooth, and then we peel back our transfer tape, leaving our removable vinyl on the wood piece. And then we're going to go ahead and paint the white chalk paint over the edge of the stencil. Let that dry, and then what we're going to do is go back on top with our black chalk paint and fill in the stencil. Now when that is fully dry, then you can just peel back your stencil and reveal your bakery sign, which I think is a really cool thing. If you want to do it with a vinyl, you could do either way, just whatever your preference is. I just wanted to show you the option of doing a stencil because on our next project, we're going to just do some regular vinyl. And so I just wanted to show you the versatility that you have doing a stencil or doing regular vinyl. Now, in keeping with Joanna Gaines' flair, I roughed up the sign with a little sandpaper. Now, I haven't decided exactly where I'm going to hang this yet, but it will probably go somewhere in my kitchen, obviously. While I decided to do a black frame on mine, I think it's a pretty close replica, and with the help of the CRICUT EXPLORE AIR 2, I only spent less than $5 for my version. Probably the only change I would make is to make the letters a bit wider if I were to redo this. So you may want to keep that in mind for your project. So this is an awesome tool. I love it. I highly recommend it for most crafters and DIYers. I have loved my CRICUT EXPLORE AIR 2. I had wished I had gotten one a long time ago. I used it way more than I thought I would. Once I got a little bit comfortable with it, it was so easy to use, really from the beginning. Don't let it intimidate you. You can do this. My last Joanna Gaines inspired DIY, we are going to be using the CRICUT JOY. So on Joanna's Magnolia Home website, she has these signs that are so cute that are painted out in these kind of muted tones like navy blue that have just simple sayings on them. And the one that we're going to be doing today says, "Seek beauty in all things." I just like that saying. I thought it was really sweet. And we're going to be making that on our CRICUT JOY. And this is their newest machine. It's tiny. It's so portable, flexible. Yeah, it still does quite a lot. So I picked up this wood canvas. I use this wood canvas in a lot of my DIYs. I get it at Walmart, and it's a 10 by 10 inch canvas. Prior to painting, we are going to create a frame from 1/2 inch square dowels. We are going to miter cut our corners using this handy new tool called miter shears. This cuts perfect 45-degree angles, and we just go all the way around. Then we're going to paint the main canvas, but leave the frame in its natural color to mimic the inspiration piece. We're going to just paint it out in a navy blue, and then we're going to cut some vinyl on our CRICUT JOY here. What's fun about a CRICUT JOY is they actually have something called smart vinyl, which does not require a mat, but they do also have a mat if you would like to use a mat. They have this little tiny one. Isn't that adorable? So you can use this and use traditional vinyl, you know, if you have some of that you want to use. So to use the CRICUT JOY is actually pretty simple after setting it up on the device of your choice. Just flip the lid open, make sure it's plugged in, and I'm going to be using CRICUT Design Studio on my phone actually, and I will just go into the app and type in our saying and put it in Times New Roman font. I adjust the size to make it 6.5 inches wide, and then we're ready to go. We control the entire cut through the app. The Joy will sense the smart vinyl and feed it into the machine, and then you will just hit Make It on the app and then it cuts away. It's very, very simple. Then just cut off the vinyl that you used and weed it just like you would any other piece of vinyl. Then you take some transfer tape and place that over the top of your quote. Make sure it's applied securely and smoothly. And then just peel back your quote and stick it into the center of your canvas, taking your scraping tool and rubbing it onto the wood. Then just peel back your transfer tape and your saying is there. Now we're going to attach our frame by using some E6000 glue, allowing it to fully dry. Now, this is almost a near identical match. I could have probably tightened up the spacing a little bit on my letters, but with the help of the CRICUT Joy, I was able to get this done for about $7, which is a huge savings off of the original, and I am really happy with the end result. If you enjoyed this episode, here's another one that I think you'll like as well. Don't forget to check out all of CRICUT's amazing offerings. See what machine is right for you, and until next time, to all of my DIY Niners, bye.